I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. Normally, you would see the weekly news wrap-up with this video, but I'm replacing the weekly news wrap-up with a special guest. I'm going to be talking about some of the stuff I would have talked about in the wrap-up with this guest. He wrote this book, kind of a dead giveaway here, The Trump Prophecies, also a popular movie of the same thing. And this is, he's had multiple prophecies, including, that Trump would be elected, that we'd have, military tribunals, which they talked about in the Kavanaugh hearings, and many other things. Let me just bring on Mark Taylor. Mark Taylor, thank you very much for joining me today on USAWatchdog.com.
Thank you, Greg. It's always an honor to be on your show, buddy.
Well, people have said to me that, oh my gosh, he's getting killed on the internet. His prophecies, the red tsunami, didn't happen, which I disagree with. Right. The Senate was a big deal, and basically it wasn't just 3 Senate pickups so far, which I know they're trying to thwart. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it really was 6. They got rid of McCain, and Corker, and also Flake out in Arizona. Right. So he really didn't even have a majority with those 3 guys in the Senate, and now he will have a solid majority. So, but I want to talk about the red tsunami. Right. The red tsunami, the mainstream media, they don't think there was a blue tsunami. Matter of fact, they're mighty pissed with this press conference. Here we have these 2 knuckleheads who were leading the parade. This is Jim Acosta, and then also Peter Alexander from NBC. These numbskulls, they think they are, they really acted like paid agitators and not people trying to get information, and really holding people's feet to the fire with solid questions, just debating the president in a press conference. And then when he's told to sit down, he stands up, he's fighting over a microphone with some White House intern. So they're pissed. Tell me what happened, and why are so many people saying, "Oh, you got it wrong, no red wave," and you say, "Hey, not so fast. This is a long game." Tell me what happened with the 2018 midterms in the House and the Democrats controlling.
Well, here's where you got to be careful with the prophetic. This is what I keep telling people: is like, case in point, people get these preconceived ideas of the way they think that the prophetic word is going to come to pass. And 99% of the time, it does not come to pass the way you think it's going to happen. Case in point, I prophesied Obama was going to try to go for a 3rd term. I had people lambaste me over that prophecy. And they thought, well, it's against the Constitution. He can't do that. Well, now we're finding out just how exactly it's coming to pass. He's 2 miles down from the White House. He's got his headquarters running a shadow government, trying to undermine the president. That was his 3rd term, and he was trying to run. So it's the same thing with this. This election is not over, Greg. This election is going to be ongoing for a while now. And this is where, when the Lord says there's going to be a red tsunami, we had a red wave. That's what we had. We took the Senate, and we added seats in the Senate. That was the goal of the whole thing. And don't forget that we took, we had 6 states flip red for governorships. Why is that important? Because the state Supreme Court justices that they're going to appoint, and Florida's got 3 of those coming up. Why is that important? Because when Roe versus Wade is overturned, it gets kicked back where? Back to the states. So that's where the governorships is important. So we did tremendously on the governorships. We did tremendously in the Senate, which is the main thing, which is the judicial, where the military tribunals can go forward. And, it's amazing. I tweeted out that night, I said, the number one thing, the voter fraud will be exposed and dealt with through this whole election. And you're seeing that take place. I believe now they're going to be able to pinpoint where the voter fraud is and go after those areas. The other thing is, that's part of this. What does it take to create a tsunami? It takes an earthquake. And here again, now, this is where God's saying, this election is not over. This red tsunami's got to be started by an earthquake. We had the red wave. The earthquake was Sessions stepping aside. The delay is over, man. They're going after these people hard. Now, I've been saying, even on your show, for 2 years, I've been saying the mass arrest, I've been saying verbatim on your show, is that the army of God better get ready to take their place when these vacancies through these mass arrests happen, because there's going to be a ton of job openings in D.C. That's the tsunami. It's the rumblings of the earthquake are already started when Sessions was moved out, and now we've got a new prosecutor coming in, our attorney general, and so this is what's going to start the earthquake, and the tsunami is going to happen when the mass arrests take place. That's the red tsunami right there.
Well, they say that this interim appointment there's been a big op-ed piece about it, and there's a big legal discussion about it, so it's probably going to be a court case, right? And that it is that the president is breaking the appointments clause of the Constitution. Well, I think Robert Mueller does too, many people say, and that he really can't do that. He can't really do that. Other people say he most certainly can appoint somebody in the interim. He can appoint somebody for a while. Well, he's not going to have this Senate vote on his new candidate for Attorney General. It's going to be 2019's Senate where everybody's already sworn in. Right. And that's probably the right way to do it. I mean, you got a lot of people new in the Senate. Incidentally, we didn't just get 6 governors. I think Kasich really was a Democrat. So we didn't retain that governorship. That he said in the primaries he should have run as a Democrat because he is one. He's certainly a New World Order globalist, and good to get rid of him. Glad to get rid of Paul Ryan too, although I think he helped flip the House red.
Yes, I agree with that.
I don't think he put up good candidates. I don't think there was. I don't think that they were funded well. He was supposed to be running the House, and he couldn't care less whether they won or not. I think that was a big part of it too.
Well, and again, when these mass arrests go down, people have to understand this election is going to be ongoing because what's going to happen when these guys are removed? We're going to have special elections. I
had other people tell me that the FISA redacted stuff should have been released early. The president said he wanted the FISA stuff released. That's what he said.
Well, they keep saying that FISA is going to bring down the House, which everybody thought that was kind of a word pun, and now we're saying that it could actually bring down the House.
Well,
so I mean,
how many times did you see the president say ahead of time that he wanted that released? I mean, he wanted that released, which is I think that's why this headline. Now, I don't know this for a fact. I'll be talking to Dave Janda. He knows more about it than I do. But listen, I just put one and one together. It's just nobody's told me this. It's just that he did say he wanted it released a while ago, and it didn't happen. And why it didn't happen, I don't know. But I think that's why we got this headline session sacked, right? I think he has been working in the background with all these other, the special prosecutor, the special counsel, and also the inspector general, all these people in the background. But I think for some reason he didn't release the stuff before the special election. And so a couple of people, you were one of them, and somebody else told me this too, that may have been leading to special elections if it would have been released before the election. It could have thwarted a lot of people getting elected, particularly Democrats. But there are going to be Republicans in this too,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The whole FISA thing is going to bring a ton of people down. Again, this whole thing with the mass arrests, people don't understand just how deep and how long and the breadth and the width of this thing goes. The tentacles of this thing is just incredible of the corruption. So, again, that's the red tsunami. So we just need to be ready to step up when these vacancies take place because, again, you're going to have special elections to fill this void.
How do you think it's going to get violent?
Yes, I've been warning about that for 2 years. When they do the mass arrest, I mean, look at them right now, Greg. The Sessions steps aside, which was all part of the plan, by the way, and all of a sudden they've got these 900, these demonstrations that they want to have. I call them demonstrations. Guess what they are? All because they want the Mueller investigation protected. Well, we all know why that is. Well, if this wasn't a red tsunami, if this wasn't a huge victory, why are they kicking and screaming like this?
Well, the press is acting like they should be slapping high fives and celebrating the demise of Donald Trump. However, that didn't happen. As a matter of fact, the Senate is where the psychedelic shack is. That's where it's at, right? I mean, that's where it's. We'll talk about Ruth Bader Ginsburg here in just a minute, but I wanted to talk more about this red tsunami. So, what are people telling you about this red tsunami? You're getting inundated with calls and texts, and I tried to call you. Your phone was off. I think you were out of town. I tried to call you, and some people were saying that you didn't pick up the phone because you hurt your credibility. But that's not true. I mean, I called you today.
I always pick up the phone when my buddy Greg Hunter calls me. You know what I mean?
So, what have people been telling you? What have they been saying, and what would you tell them back?
They just say, "Hey, Mark, someone will say, 'Hey, Mark, I love you, but you missed it.' You know what I mean? That's kind of like the very subtle approach where I love you, but they're sliding the knife in your back. And then you got the not so subtle approach where it's like, hey, I told many people to put their hope in you, and none of this stuff came to pass, this, that, and the other. So I tell people, never put your hope in man. Always put your hope in the Lord Jesus himself, period. Because it's not beyond me getting something wrong, Greg. I freely admit it, period. But the point is, I am not going to back off this red tsunami thing because I know what God told me. I know the tsunami is coming. This is all part of it. And so I am not going to apologize for something that God did. So people want to sit there and they want to criticize. And it's like, you don't understand what you're talking about because you're not seeing the big picture right now. So, and the big picture is that any prophetic person will tell you that they live way out here on the edge and they're constantly seeing the full picture. And they're over here trying to tell the people, hey, come over here. I need you to see this. And when people attack you like this, it's because they're operating from a point of intellect. They're not operating in the spirit. This is not where God doesn't operate in the natural. They're prognosticating. They're basing their facts on what they see in the natural with their natural eyes. That's not where God operates. God operates in the spiritual realm, and that's where people get it wrong. The other thing that was going on with this is this election was also exposing people. It was exposing the heart of man. And so these people that are doing the attacking, folks, I hate to tell you this, but God just exposed you. He exposed where you're at on a spiritual level because wisdom says you don't shoot the man on your team. You don't shoot someone. We don't shoot our own wounded. But the church is so bad. The Christians are so bad about shooting their own wounded when they disagree with you. It's okay to disagree. We don't have to worry. It's not a problem with disagreeing with one another, but you don't shoot the man in the foxhole with you who's protecting your back, who's watching your back. And that's what they're very bad about. But this is what this was about. Some of this was exposing the heart of man. This was a promotional exam, getting out of the body of Christ and into the army of God, where the spiritually mature are. So there was a lot of people that flunked this test. I don't know what to tell them. There's going to be a lot of people disagreeing with me, but that's fine.
So you think the red tsunami is the arrests that's coming, the unredacted FISA, which is yes. I think a possible reason why Sessions was gone. I heard the president say more than one time that I want that released.
Right.
And it wasn't released. And, why would you release it after the horse is out of the barn? Don't you want to release it, to help you out in the election? I don't know. I'm not an expert on that. But you're saying that these arrests that you say are now coming,
right?
You think that's really where the tsunami is.
Where the tsunami is. And it takes an earthquake to create a tsunami. The rumblings of this earthquake, when Sessions stepped aside, that is where the rumblings are starting. I really believe you're going to see things accelerate. Look at everything that has happened since the election. I mean, yesterday was a whirlwind, period. And now today, all of a sudden, we're talking Ginsburg, which I know we'll get to here in a minute.
Let's talk about her now.
This is not coincidence that she's all of a sudden, this is happening with Ginsburg. Okay, and this is what I warned people. Again, I warned them with the prophetic word. The prophetic word I wrote said that Donald Trump would appoint 5 Supreme Court justices, and 3 would be caught in a scandal. And these 3 that I've been warning people, be very careful with this, because even though she retires out, we may never know what that scandal is publicly, but they may be forced to retire out and make it look like they're retiring out. Now, is that going on with Ginsburg? I don't know. I have no proof of it. The Lord has not shown me anything. I just know these 3 of Supreme Court justices will be caught in some type of scandal, and they're going to be removed, period.
I think she was going to be 5 altogether, and you got 2 down.
5.
I think that she is 85 years old. So,
right.
I mean, I know they're appointed for life, but we're starting to get on the the long end of the
It's time to go. It's time to go.
Don't you think?
Yeah, it's time to go.
Well, it's time to go when she can go. But boy, 3 broken ribs. That was a bad fall.
Right. Right.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I'm just going to say, it is, again, with this prophetic word, people are going to be looking for some type of a huge scandal to remove 3 Supreme Court justices. I don't think you're going to see it publicly, because what would happen if you remove 3 Supreme Court justices, especially if they were liberal? I mean, you'd have a civil war in this country probably. So, I mean, again, they're probably slowly through stuff like this, through attrition or whatever the case may be, you'll probably see them retire out. I don't know.
Speaking of violence, the story breaking out about Tucker Carlson's home was attacked by Antifa, and they tweeted out, "We know where you live," or "We know where you sleep," and they blocked off both ends of the streets. By the time the cops came, poof, they took off. They were taking videos so they could show all the violence they were doing, beating on his door, damaging his door while his wife and kids were home. That's just Nazi tactics. I mean, they keep saying the GOP are Nazis. No, the Nazis were socialists.
Right.
Okay, like Ocasio-Cortez, they were Democrat socialists. That's where Tom Perez, the head of the DNC, says the party's going. They're socialist. Nazis were National Socialist Nazis, a combination of the word. So, do you think that this is going to get more heated?
I believe it probably will. I believe when the mass arrests go down, that's when you're going to see a lot of the civil unrest. And I think martial law is coming. I've been saying that for a long time now. Now, how deep and how wide that martial law is, I have no clue. It's beyond my pay grade. God has not shown me. If it is are they going to lock down the entire country for 24, 48 hours? I have no clue. I just know that probably people need to be prepared with some food, stuff like that. And because if they do lock it down, it could hamper shipments coming into grocery stores, stuff like that for a little bit.
Okay, I want to talk about the more of this illegal voting. So
Right.
you live in the state of Florida, and
Yes.
now we're getting a little hard street reporting from you. And you're saying that now lawyers are descending on Florida. They don't like the outcome for the Senate. Nelson looks like he got beat by
Right.
Scott. It looks like Gullum got beat. He also has some other bribe allegations and things like that, other legal problems coming
Right.
down. And DeSantis, it looks like he won, but you're saying that the Democrats are getting ready to try to steal. Tell me about it.
Well, and that's what Marco Rubio just actually put out something on that as well. Fox is reporting on it, I believe, down in West Palm and Broward County, which is, by the way, the same county that messed over Allen West while he's looking in the window, and they're bringing in boxes of ballots. They locked him out of his own building. This is, it's ridiculous. So, at some point, they're going to have to drop the hammer on this stuff, and I believe this election is part of that, where they can actually pinpoint who and where these issues are. So again, this is another exposure thing with this election.
Well, this is different this time, Mark Taylor. Remember he had his election commission, and then he threw it back in on Homeland Security.
Right.
And elections are done state by state. People think we have one national election, midterm. It's midterms. The elections are all over the country, and each individual state manages, their election board, their election people manage the state. They're not going to be able to hide behind, I'm sorry, we're controlling this. You can't not. No, this is a Homeland Security issue. No, you don't get to do that. Isn't that what's going to come down? That Homeland Security is going to come in? This is going to be a national security issue?
I would hope so, because at this point, it is a national security issue. And I will tell you this: the same feeling I had, that night, this past Tuesday, whenever it was, on election night, is the same feeling I had the night that Obama won in 2012, which he did not win. It was stolen. The man was never supposed to be president. The Lord already showed me that. So you have a lot of voter fraud that's going on out there right now still. But, I think they've done some things to counteract the voter fraud. But at the same token, I think there's still a whole lot more that needs to be done, because there was way too many races out there, Greg, that were way too close. And you can't tell me with Donald Trump pulling in these kinds of people at his rallies like this, that once again, that it was a hair-thin vote all across the country. I'm not buying it.
Well, there were 36 GOP seats that were vacated. Here's something by O'Keefe, which is Project Veritas, is DACA illegals voting in Texas. There's a million of them or something. DACA illegals voting in Texas. Got them on Keiko. Oh yeah. They're voting here. It's okay. You can vote here if you're a DACA illegal. That's just Texas. That's Beto O'Rourke,
Right.
who I don't understand why it's a 2-point race. I didn't understand that. He wanted open borders. He's not for the Second Amendment. He wanted to abolish ICE. He was also caught his campaign of sending money to this caravan that's going to be attacking the southern United States.
Right.
Isn't that what's going on?
Yeah, it's not a caravan. They may try and mix women and kids in here to make it look like it's an invasion, period. They're doing everything they can to make this president look bad. Whatever they do is not going to work. God's got his hand on his president. God's got his hand on this country. Again, God is returning America back to a foundation of righteousness and justice, period. And you're going to see justice fall everywhere.
Well, these two weasels here, these two overpaid, weasels, Alexander and Acosta, they were arguing with the president over what the threat was. They were arguing about the caravan, that it's really not a caravan, it's 400 miles. These are just harmless people. They're basically tearing the president, which they have no intel whatsoever. And they're basically arguing with the president over his policies. You heard what he said. Why don't you let me run the country and you run CNN?
Well,
right?
Look, the media is out of control anyway, Greg. You and I both know that.
And I want to say that. Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
This is, what this is? You know what this shows? Our bosses are so proud of us. They are being enabled by their bosses. Don't think that these guys, these two numbskulls, run NBC News and CNN. They don't. I worked there when same time he worked there. I guess he's found his calling. That he was really kind of a nothing reporter anyway. He's not even he's not even much of a reporter. He's a paid agitator and a propagandist. These people think they're doing the Lord's work. They think they're doing they're journalists with a big J under their chest. They're not. Right. They look ridiculous. No. I mean, no. And listen, I don't believe that either person at the microphone squabble. I don't think either one assaulted the other. But he was fighting over the microphone after the President of the United States said, "You're done. You're done." And he's holding onto the microphone like a 2-year-old.
Right.
I mean.
Well, look, the media is out of control. We saw what Fox News did on election night.
Yes, let's talk about that.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I mean, these are like treasonous acts. I mean, honestly, I'm sorry. You can say whatever they can say whatever they want, disagree with me, but that's a treasonous act. You were literally messing around with a national election. I mean, they want to blame everything on Russia. I mean, come on, give me a break. So I mean,
they called it. Let me just make sure we fill this out. Fox News called the election like at about 8:30 or so, right. About 2.5 hours before the West Coast voting was done. Right. Hey, newsflash for you. That means that there was another more time in the Rocky Mountain time as well. Another hour and a half in the Rocky Mountain time. 2.5 hours before the West Coast and an hour and a half in the Rocky Mountain time. They called the election. I'm running this thing and I think, excuse me, Fox News, NBC calling that they won the House. I'm looking at the map from the AP going, they don't have they're not even done. They haven't even put the first result in Nevada.
That makes you wonder how they knew the results ahead of time.
They didn't know the result. They couldn't have. The election, the polls weren't closed. They couldn't have known the results. They don't release any of the results until the polls close.
Kind of makes you wonder what was going on behind the scenes now, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, listen.
Look, the news media is fixing to get gutted. They're going to get gutted. Period. I mean, God's done with the news media. When the president says that the fake news is the enemy of the people, he is absolutely 100% correct. Because the mind control that's going out from the news media is incredible. And I mean, it is just unbelievable. That's why I tell people, stop listening to the mainstream media. Go to the president's Twitter feed. Go to his Facebook page. Get the truth straight from the source. So yeah, God's going to gut these news media. I can almost guarantee you there are a lot of indictments with a lot of news media and a lot of people in the news media with their names on it.
Well, that's not so far-fetched, and I'll tell you why. Remember the FBI, Page and Strzok, talking about the media leak strategy? Remember that?
Yep.
That the media was in on a leak strategy?
Shocker.
You don't have any First Amendment protections for conspiring with the government to take down the president and reveal classified information. I'm sorry, I'm a reporter. You don't have that. You don't have any protection.
Right.
Not when you're conspiring to take down the president and you're part of a strategy.
Right.
This FISA warrant thing, I want to come back to that. That's the big thing that starts the whole thing going. Is that your understanding? What are you getting on the FISA? Well, unredacted FISA warrants, which the FISA and all the people involved in it and all the documents around it. Is that what you're thinking that gets the whole thing going?
Well, I'm thinking that this thing's already in process now, because I mean, I think by this whole thing with Jeff Sessions stepping aside right now, the cases have become airtight at this point, and I think now you're going to start seeing acceleration and movement on this thing. Now, when the actual arrests go down, I don't know. I have not been shown. I'm not even going to try and guess. I don't know. But I just know that we're getting close, and I know that at some point they are probably going to have to declare martial law on all of this, and then we're going to have to roll into the continuation of this election in the special elections. That's the red tsunami.
Well, as Hillary Clinton was, the Democratic Party was bankrupt, and I've said this a million times. She had private servers, plural, to cover the fact she was taking treasonous bribes to a global charity fraud. And she was funding all kinds of stuff with the Clinton Foundation. I mean, they collected somewhere in the neighborhood of $4 billion in Haiti, and they got hardly any of it, according to the officials down there. What happened to the money? Nobody. How could anybody do that? People had been involved in charity frauds for a lot less money. Democrats, and they're now in jail for 5 years. There's one in Florida, I believe, that had that. The funding apparatus that was the Clinton Foundation for the New World Order, Luciferians, Democrats, call it what you want. I think that's and daughter Chelsea, who wants to be in politics, that she says she's thinking about it. She was running a global charity fraud. I mean, this global charity fraud, and this is what they were protecting, why she had to be exonerated. Not just because they wanted her president. I think they wanted her exonerated because of the massive fraud where nobody on either side of the aisle would say a peep about the obvious fraud of the Clinton Foundation. What say you?
Right. Yeah, I mean, again, I mean, you're going to see this stuff, and I like what this new acting attorney general said that he would go after the Clinton Foundation. Basically, he would prosecute. So, I mean, again, I don't. Chelsea Clinton's days are numbered. I wrote that prophetic word in 2015 that said that the Clintons were going to go down. I mean, you're going to see people go down. You're even going to see people in the church go down. Some big time leaders in the church, I believe, because there's going to be some stuff come out. What they were into, the corruption in the church is going to parallel the exposure of the corruption in the church is going to parallel that in the political. I've been saying that for a long time now, and so this whole thing, it's those you trust the most. A lot of times, I think you said that, and so it's again that the Lord's been showing me that this corruption, even in the church, is going to go deep, and it's going to be there's going to be a lot of hurt people. There's going to be people who are going to feel betrayed because those that they trusted are going to be into some things that they would never have thought they were going to be into.
I brought this up when Horowitz came out with his report. And one of the things that came out, I gave a page number at the time, this is a few months ago, but I gave an exact page number and had an exact quote from it. And there was a meeting between Comey and a top deputy FBI guy. And and one of the meeting notes was Hillary Clinton, Clinton Foundation, and crimes against children. I'm paraphrasing. It's kind of, those are the words though. Hillary Clinton, Clinton Foundation, crimes against children. And I'm thinking, what? Clinton Foundation and crimes against children in the same sentence? Excuse me? And that was a meeting point that neither one really remember. I mean, we got some bad people going on. What did Mel Gibson say? That in Hollywood they feast on children and drink their blood? I believe that's the quote. Mel Gibson.
Right. And, I don't know if Juanita Broderick is watching this or not, but I want to encourage her because in that same prophecy, it talks about, because she's been trying to get Bill Clinton, trying to take him down for a long time now, what he did to her.
He raped her, she says.
Right. And I mean, so I want to encourage her right now if she's listening, because that prophetic word that I wrote in there said that he will be held accountable for the rape and prostitution that this guy's been into. So the Clintons are going to go down. Obama's going to go down. You got, and again, if we didn't win this victory, why are they panicking so much right now, Greg? You got a lot going on. We had the shooting last night in California. You've got subtle little code words that are being put out by Eric Holder, the red line, cross the red line, and now
let's talk about that for a minute. Hold on a minute. I want you. Yeah. You brought that up to me on the phone. Let's talk about that. So Eric Holder's out. So they're having this meeting. Rachel Maddow. She claims she's a journalist. Yep. Okay. Rachel Maddow I've heard her say it. Claims she's a journalist. She's been introduced as a journalist. Now, I got to say one thing about Hannity. He does not claim he's a journalist. He says he's a talk show host. And he's a conservative, and where his biases lies. Okay, I don't agree with him on everything, but okay, he does not masquerade as something he's not. Right. Rachel Maddow says she's a journalist, and yet she is helping to organize mass protests with Eric Holder. Talk about the Eric Holder thing. What was your thing about seeing Eric Holder on some in front of JFK picture?
Right. He changed his Twitter background to you see him standing there with his arms crossed in front of JFK's gravesite, and he's got his hands together with his two fingers like he's giving a code. And so, people aren't stupid now.
Wait. Do you think? Stop for a minute. Do you think this? He's given the order to have the same thing that happened to Donald Trump that happened to JFK? Is that what you're surmising, or what?
It's not looking good. So let's put it that way. It looks like there is something being given off in the spirit by what he's doing. These guys have code words. They have symbolisms. I mean, they don't have to come out right out and say something to activate these people. That's what people don't understand. I've been saying this for a long time, is that, look, all you got to do is somebody who's under mind control or like these active shooters. I prophesied that about the Pulse nightclub shooting. It wasn't coincidence that you had the Bilderbergs meeting the same week that Pulse nightclub shooting went down. It's because they're sending this stuff out. They're into the highest forms of witchcraft on earth. So all this stuff gets activated in the spirit. I've done active shooter response training through with Leos and fire service.
Law enforcement officers.
Law enforcement officers. So I mean, we've done all this, and you hear the stories, you see what's going on with these active shooters, what's going on in their mind. This is total demonic. I mean, I could go into a story right now with one, but I'm not going to do it. We don't have time. But I mean, these guys are totally demonic when it comes to this stuff. So they're using the mind control. They're using these activation codes to activate these guys, like the red line. And then Rachel Maddow, whatever her name is, she repeats this thing, and now you've got all these protests going on across, supposedly trying to get across the country. That was the code to get these guys out there.
They should be out having. I mean, if they really did so great on the air, there was one after another saying, "Well, this is not a red wave. I mean, this is not a blue wave. This is not so great. This is not so hot." I mean, no. This is they knew they didn't do, and they were cheating to do it. I mean, it's obvious.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about voter irregularities in multiple states. Hold on, yeah. We're talking about voting machine problems in Tennessee, Utah, Pennsylvania, which Pennsylvania had a good night. Ed Rendell was on going, oh, well, we're going to have a good night in Pennsylvania. How did you know that? Well, I guess it's because, maybe some of the voter machines were not doing well. In North Carolina, Arizona, also voters reportedly turned away. They had problems with their voting machines as well. I mean, a lot of problems out there. And then, of course, they called the race at 2.5 hours with 2.5 hours on the West Coast and an hour and a half on the Rocky Mountain.
Those are just the ones that we know about.
That's just the ones we know about.
That's just the ones we know about.
Do you think they're going to be successful in overturning the election in Florida?
I pray not, because I mean they're trying to cheat now and do it, and this is the same thing they did to Allen West, which is a bunch of garbage. So I don't believe they will, but let's just pray not. You know what I mean? I'm not, God hasn't shown me anything on that. So I mean, they tried to do this back in when Bush 43 was in with Gore during the hanging Chad. I mean, for some reason, Florida is a battleground, and because I think it's, I've been warning too about this, Greg, about Florida and Texas, and you're seeing a lot of stuff going on with Florida and Texas with this stuff because they're the two biggest electoral college votes other than California, and that's why they're after
New York,
Texas.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you something else too. I mean, there's a case in point. I keep bringing up this thing about how Fox News and NBC called the race out on the West Coast. You remember when NBC News called Florida for Gore? With at 7 o'clock, they waited till after the polls closed in Florida.
Right.
But Florida, with the Panhandle, goes out into the Central Time Zone. There's 4, 5, 6 counties out there that are in the Central Time Zone that vote red.
Which is, by the way, the largest conservative population in the state, right?
Yes, that's right. So they vote total red, by a country mile. And they caught grief. They called it at 7, yet the polls were still open for another hour in the Panhandle, in the Central Time Zone, the counties in the Central Time Zone. Right. Well, now, that's only an hour, in basically in one state. Now they called it for the entire West Coast and Rocky Mountain time zones. That's what a third of the real estate in America. That's why that's such a big deal. And Fox isn't saying a word about it.
Well, look at how deep this fraud goes, though, Greg. I mean, you look at I have friends up there in Bay County, Panama City. They just got wiped out.
Yeah.
By the hurricane. And these guys had all their votes in, counted, this, that, and the other. But yet you got Broward County down there that can never get their act together, and it's always a sore spot in this state. Now, why is that?
Well, you're pointing to the fact that you think it's election fraud.
Absolutely.
Well, they're not going to be able to get away with it. They're going to draw the ire of the FBI and the Homeland Security. This is a national security issue.
This is a national security issue now. That's why I'm hoping that they drop the hammer on them.
How far up is DeSantis in the governor's race over Gillum? How far up is have you heard is Nelson?
I don't know yet. I haven't heard the latest.
But they're both up pretty good.
I don't know that those numbers are closing in now, supposedly, because all of a sudden, mysteriously, we got new ballots showing up somewhere. We found some ballots somewhere. I don't know. I haven't read the latest. I don't know what that is yet.
Okay. All right. I wanted to bring this up to you, and I know you don't talk about medals very much, but this is pretty outrageous because they've been saying for years and they quit saying that finally because of so many arrests and so many people admitted to rigging the markets, all the markets, including the gold and silver market. I remember it's not that many years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Oh, you have tinfoil hat. They don't manipulate the gold and silver market. Well, here we are. Here's just broke again. Former J.P. Morgan trader pleads guilty to manipulating metals markets. I just want to read this. John Edwards, 36, pleaded guilty to 1 count of commodities fraud, 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, price manipulation. Edmonds, a 13-year J.P. Morgan veteran, said that he learned how to manipulate. Hold on. Boing. He learned how to manipulate prices from more senior traders that and that his supervisors at the firm knew his actions. So let me get this straight. You pleaded guilty to manipulation of the precious metals market, the prices, in most cases suppression. You admitted it, and then you're the only person that gets charged. Your bosses who taught you how to do it and knew you were doing it, they don't get charged. What do you think about this? This is just more Greg Manarino says, the total fake market out here. It's a fake on top of fake. What do you think about that? What's your feelings?
Honestly, that's above my pay grade. Honestly, I mean, I think it's just more corruption that again God's exposing. I mean, it's all across the board. If you're talking about metals, money, I mean, the banking system, I mean, the Fed. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, this corruption is so deep, and this is what we've been talking about tonight. This is what's going to get cleaned up.
And this is your prophecy, I think, starts. I think the title of it: "Time is up for those who are corrupt."
Correct.
And
Correct.
You're saying that they're all going, that this corruption is going to come to a screeching halt.
This corruption is going to come to a screeching halt. And I mean, I think at some point he's probably going to do something about the Fed as well. I mean, all this stuff. I mean, it may come in stages. It may come in waves. It may be done it all at one shot. I have no clue.
He says that the press is the enemy of the fake news. He doesn't say the press. He says the fake news is the enemy of the people. What say you?
I say absolutely 100%. I mean, when you look at what these guys are doing, the mind control that these guys are doing, period, on these people, and you have, again, when you're reporting truth, there's a certain frequency at which you speak at, and people will begin to listen. They begin to absorb the truth. When you start speaking lies, when you start, I call it Satan's frequency. That was the one prophecy that I wrote called Satan's frequency. And it talks about the mainstream media. They're attached to Satan's frequency, period. He is the prince of the air, the Bible says. So this is why people with the doom and gloom mentality, or they can't see what God is doing a lot of times, they're attached to Satan's frequency. They're listening to the mainstream media. They're being brainwashed, literally brainwashed, and certain frequencies that go out at a certain hertz, like 440 hertz, which is what they're broadcasting at, which is a known fact. It creates fear, panic, paranoia, egotism, and it will literally change your DNA. Go ahead. The goal of the New World Order is to steal the free will of man. In other words, to have you thinking the way they want you to think, perceiving how they want you to perceive. It's to steal the free will of man so that you can no longer think and make decisions yourself. And God gives everyone a free gift, their free will. He can never take that away. And see, what's coming right now, I believe, is like a worldwide deliverance, if you will, of sorts, where God is going to institute the free will of man. In other words, he's going to rip off these mind-binding and mind-bending spirits, if you will, through the mainstream media or any of these other things that are going on that we're being bombarded with in life right now, so that man can make a decision. He can't even make a decision right now, hardly, because it's been stolen.
I had somebody write me, I'm going to wrap this up, my friend. I had somebody write me and said, and this is a nice comment, actually. He says, have Mark Taylor come on and give us something positive to focus on. And I think there's a lot positive. Looks like he's going to replace yet another Supreme Court judge. And I don't wish anything bad on Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I don't wish anything bad.
No.
I do wish the president be successful because he's for the Constitution and we the people. Not because he's a Republican. I want him to be for we the people. Paul Ryan, who I call a weasel, he was for we the slush fund, we the New World Order, and we the Koch brothers, but not we the people.
Right.
And so that's who I'm for. I'm for we the people. All we the people, black, white, Asian, all of them, everybody. Okay. So he said, have Mark Taylor come on because we need something good to focus on. Okay. And I just wanted to kind of revamp here, recap here. You say the red tsunami wasn't this election, but
it is. It is this. It's part of this ongoing election, so to speak. This is going to be going on for a while here, because you've got the voter fraud. You've got the mass arrests that are going to continue. When these mass arrests take place, I don't know when it's going to happen, but you can look at this as a continuation of this election, basically, because it could happen this weekend. It could happen 6 months from now. I don't know when it's going to happen. But either way, they're going to have to replace all these people that they're going to arrest. There's going to be vacancies. That's the good news. The good news is, are we going to go through a little bit of hard times, with the civil unrest and this transition that we're in, taking our country back, basically, for God and for the people? yeah, there's going to be a little bit of upheaval. There's nothing we can do about it. We're just going to have to weather through it. But you know what? God is still on the throne. He is in control, period. There is a plan in place. And this, everybody wants to point fingers at Donald Trump saying, hey, this is Donald Trump's agenda. Folks, no, it's not. It is God's agenda. It's heaven's agenda. God will use or choose man to implement his agenda. He has chosen Donald Trump for such a time as this. This is what this is about. This is everything that we've been praying for decades to take place. We've been asking the Lord for justice. Justice is about to reign supreme on the earth right now. So there's going to be a little bit of dark time whenever we're in this transition, when the roundup begins to take place. But after that, guys, America's going to prosper like never before. I'm just telling you. I wrote that prophecy called America, America. They can go to my website at swordrescue.com, SORD rescue.com. They can download all my prophetic words for free, and you can read it. Lay them out from beginning to end. It's like a blueprint. It shows you where we're starting and where we're going, and it will be encouraging to you.
Mark Taylor, you are the co-author of this book, Trump Prophecies. There's going to be well, hopefully I'm not letting anything out of the bag. Are you guys thinking about having a part 2 to your book and movie? Are you thinking about doing something else? Because a lot's happened, since this book came out. I mean, a lot's happened since this book came out. Are you thinking about it? Is there any kind of, act 2?
I don't know. I don't know if there's an act 2 right now. I have, what I mean? It's just something I'd have to pray about.
Okay, well, we hope you get the right answer. I hope the right answer is an act 2, because I'm fascinated by. I don't know if people read this book. The prophecies are free, but the backstory in the book is fabulous. I'll put up a link to the book, and also your prophecies on Sword Rescue. But thank you, Mark Taylor. Thanks for coming on and clarifying what happened with the red wave, which is ongoing. And thank you for coming on. I'm sorry you're taking heat, and but that means you're over the target, my friend.
That's right.
That's what you. So thank you for coming on, Mark Taylor. Mark Taylor, the co-author of this book, The Trump Prophecies. Thank you, Mark.
Hey, thank you for having me, Greg. It's always an honor to be on your show, buddy.